Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. We bring you hundreds of novel audiobooks covering every genre and every kind of story you can imagine. Action? We've got it. Adventure? Absolutely. Horror? Of course. Whether it's the legendary Uchiha Massacre or outrageous tales like stealing Naruto's and Sasuke's women, you'll find it here. From epic series like One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and Hunter x Hunter, to countless other adventures, our library has it all. Love novels but don't have time to read? No worries, just plug in your earbuds, sit back, and let the story take over. Good listening, and happy hearing. Illumi's fee was more affordable. Based on the difficulty of the job this time, Illumi was capable enough. Contacting the Zoltik family was never really a secret in the underworld. Very few people, however, could actually afford them. From now on, shut your mouth. I don't want to hear you talk. Otherwise, our deal's off. I'll pay the breach of contract fee. You'll lose a precious long-term client. Xiaongnan's voice was cool. Indeed, seeing how generous your payment is, you do seem quite wealthy. A potential long-term collaborator. But if you want me to keep quiet, that's extra. It wasn't specified in the original job request. Xiaongnan felt, among all storyline characters he had encountered, this was the first time he'd truly been annoyed. 5 million Jenny. He named a figure. Just for staying quiet a short while, and you earn 5 million. Like free money. Hence, the puppet under Illumi's needle control promptly shut up. Xiaongnan finally got some silence. Barely 1 or 2 minutes later, though, the puppet started gesturing in sign language, apparently trying to communicate with him. Xiaongnan ignored it. About an hour later, a young girl walked into the cafe. It was Menmen. Seeing her arrival, Xiaongnan got to his feet and departed. He had already told Menmen bits and pieces regarding Amokage. She recognized some storyline references but did not know much about Amokage himself, a former troop member. All three of them, plus Illumi's puppet, left the cafe. Illumi manipulated the puppet to make a few hand signals, then left first to begin the job. He would use the intelligence in hand to search for Amokage. It wasn't too difficult a task for him. Amokage's younger sister, Retz, was in this city. Additionally, the Zoltik family's top-notch hacker in computing made it easy to gather info. They'd once even hacked the Hunter's website, not to mention a national network. Hiring the Zoltiks truly was convenient. Although the fees were painful, the professionalism was second to none. Xiaongnan and Menmen returned to their hotel in the meantime. That's the girl said to be Amokage's sister? In the hotel, Menmen eyed the image. Sketched from memory. Of a blonde, blue-eyed girl, full of curiosity. This image was drawn, not an actual photo. The facial features weren't too precise. Otherwise, Menmen wouldn't have seen it anyway. Her name's Retz. But she died already. Right now, she's just Amokage's puppet. The reason Amokage is called the Divine Puppeteer is greatly tied to her. Retz was Amokage's first work. After Xiaongnan said that, Menmen pressed her lips together, looking displeased. What kind of scum would do that to his own little sister? Even if it was just a corpse. Such a person. Menmen trailed off. She could guess Xiaongnan wanted to recruit Amokage for some reason. His value as a powerful nin user. But that notion gave her a sour taste. Don't overthink. I want him to join Pandora's box purely because his nin is special. Or you can say it's extremely rare. Xiaongnan clarified. Special? Yeah. A specialist, in other words. Among the 6 major nin types, specialist stands apart from the others in its fundamental nature. Simply put, nin can turn your imagination into reality, but the perfect manifestation of that is often found in specialists. That category's ability extremes are the most outrageous. Lowest floor, highest ceiling. Amokage's ability revolves around souls. Xiaongnan added. Souls. Xiaongnan nodded. That's why I want him. Real reason, the reincarnation dimension. He's just a tool to me, not a companion to be trusted. Since he was kicked from the troop, his skill is presumably weaker than the others. In an advanced scenario, I doubt he could survive once the reincarnation arcs come into play in earnest, but for the early stage or if I need a scapegoat, he's good enough. If he won't cooperate, we can kill him. I'll just have Illumi do it. Alright. Menmen only half understood. She gleaned that either way, Xiaongnan didn't plan to let Amokage live in the long run. You and I came in on the same wave of players, so we've spent about the same length of time in this world. I've continually had the Republic of Padakia's military gather data on us, the so-called nameless town people, including my interactions with other players. Based on that analysis, we can basically conclude something. Xiaongnan's tone grew heavier. What's that? After clearing the 2 fixed format tasks in the 4th and 5th rounds, Going from Extinction 5 to 6 is definitely a big checkpoint, extremely challenging. Because up to now, we haven't seen any Extinction 6 players at large, nor do we see many high-level players active. It's not purely because they fear storyline characters, but also because among the current surviving player base, extremely few can reach Extinction 6. Recall those players from Kanganashora in the third round? They were at about Extinction 5 or 6. They forcibly broke through the dimensional barrier to appear in the Hunter world as the system's mission demanded. The squad leader, who already had some knowledge of the HXH storyline from prior visits, said that the 6th round basically leads us to the reincarnation dimension. So soon? Right. I can't be certain, but I suspect it. Telling you is so you can be mentally prepared. Chapter 103, Illumi's Tricks on the Street. Illumi stood beyond the crowd. He was watching a little boy in the center of the applauding citizens, who was manipulating a puppet for a performance. That boy was clearly a professional puppeteer. Small, exquisitely crafted clown-like puppets were brought to life under the boy's control, displaying various skills reminiscent of a variety show act. So that's how it is. Illumi rubbed his chin, observed for a moment, and spoke tonelessly. Puff, puff, puff. No obvious motion was seen from him, just the sound of several faint impacts. Instantly, the people around him, still wearing expressions of delight, froze. Then they all collapsed. The originally cheerful atmosphere came to a screeching halt. Some onlookers farther away, upon seeing this, screamed in fright and scurried off in a panic. Illumi, meanwhile, stepped over the fallen bodies toward the boy, who looked on in horror. He slowly made his way over and approached him directly. "Where's your brother?" Without any preamble or introduction, Illumi asked bluntly. That young boy was actually a girl in disguise. Rets. However, Illumi instantly recognized she wasn't fully alive but rather a puppet that possessed a soul and some measure of self-awareness. "Through those eyes, I assume you can see me, right?" Illumi's deadened pupils stared at the girl's eyes, speaking flatly. He wasn't talking to Rets but rather to Amokaj, hiding somewhere behind Rets's vision. "Someone wants to meet you. I'll give you 1 hour to show up. Otherwise, I'll destroy this doll of yours." Illumi raised a finger, seemingly talking to Rets but in fact very aware that, through her eyes, the hidden Amokaj could observe all that was happening here. After speaking, Illumi suddenly moved behind Rets and, with a light chop, knocked the girl unconscious. Quite a special ability she's got. Holding the limp Rets, Illumi lifted her by the chin for a look and commented. Then, he vanished without a trace. Half an hour later, in a certain city cemetery, Illumi placed the unconscious Rets off to one side and stood there blankly, gazing at the sky. "He's here." He suddenly turned to look toward the greenery at the edge of the graveyard. Following his line of sight, a figure emerged from the woods. The newcomer was none other than the Phantom Troop's former number 4, Amokaj. He had long silver gray hair draped over his shoulders and wore an outfit resembling a priest's robe. His skin was pale, and he bore piercings on his lips and eyebrows. Zoltik. As soon as Amokaj appeared, he directly spoke Illumi's identity. "You know me?" Illumi tilted his head slightly. "That makes this easier. Someone hired me to find you. They want a meeting." Illumi indeed had some contact with the Phantom Troop in the past, but mainly just with Hisoka and Krallo. As for the other members, he wasn't too familiar. Amokaj's expression was somewhat manic. Even facing a Zoltik family assassin, he showed no hint of fear. He had come not to rescue Rets but rather because, for him, Illumi Zoltik was a prized collectible. If he could use his necromantic puppet technique to claim Illumi's eyes, that is, a piece of Illumi's soul, that would be fantastic. The Zoltik family and the troop did have a minor history. Years ago, Silva Zoltik personally killed one troop member. Originally the number 8 seat, later replaced by Kaluto. Now Illumi's words sparked Amokaj's interest. He guessed, could it be the troop? Amokaj closed his eyes, his tone mocking. He still sported the number 4 spider tattoo on his palm. He believed he had lost on purpose to Hisoka. The troop had been thoroughly played by him. His reason for joining them was to collect the original members as puppets. So when he fought Hisoka, he'd already achieved his goal, no need to remain. As for the troop's leader, Krallo, Amokaj still respected his strength and style. Perhaps Krallo had realized some of his schemes. But as a one-time troop member, Amokaj knew if the troop wanted to find him, they wouldn't outsource the job to outsiders. They'd do it themselves. "It's not the troop. Someone else." Illumi, apparently aware of some details about Amokaj, responded calmly. "Then I'm not interested. On the contrary, would you mind giving me your eyes?" Amokaj sneered. At those words, he activated his nin. Several dark shadows darted from the woods, morphing into streaks of black that landed around Illumi, encircling him from multiple angles. Exactly 7 of them. They took the forms of the troop's first 7 members: Krallo, Franklin, Takanoda, Maki, Uvojin, Fit, and Nobunaga. The illusions looked nearly identical to the real people, right down to their aura. But there were hollow sockets in place of eyes, with no eyeballs present. Illumai raised some needle-like hair-thin rods between his fingers, unleashing his nin. I see, no choice then. As expected, anything troop-related is troublesome. Still, the price offered wasn't bad. As he spoke, Illumai's figure lunged forward, dashing directly at Amokaj. A few hours later, in a hotel, Xiongnan, reading a book, received a text message on his phone. After glancing at it, he immediately rose and left with Menman. They headed to the address mentioned in the text. Illumai had found the target. Next step. Xiongnan would talk to Amokaj. The two grabbed a taxi to the cemetery. Arriving near sunset, Xiongnan followed the paths into the depths of the graveyard, finding the location. They saw a chaotic battleground. Many headstones were shattered around the site, bloodstains littered the ground. By all appearances, the battle had been intense. After all, capturing and restraining a target is far harder than simply killing them. Especially a former troop member like Amokaj. Which again confirmed Illumai's strength was superior. He alone took this job, no need to involve any other family members, meaning he was totally confident after evaluating the job's demands. The Zoltik clan, indeed worthy of its assassin's name. You've arrived. Nearby, a puppet under Illumai's control spoke, greeting them. He's still unconscious. Want me to wake him up? Illumai asked. You didn't do anything lethal to him or cause unhealable injuries, right? Although I said grab him alive by any means, that doesn't mean him just barely breathing. If he's missing limbs, that'd be a big hassle. Xiongnan approached, scanning the area. How could I? I acted fully in accordance with your directions. Illumai replied. You haven't stuck any of your gross needles in his head, wanting to eavesdrop on our conversation? Of course not. I follow professional ethics, Illumai said. But at that moment, he glanced at Amokaja's unconscious body, silently pulling out a hidden needle from the man's skull. He almost forgot that, as a nameless person, Xiongnan seemed well aware of Illumai's style. No sneaky little moves would slip past him. Relax. This time, the talk's not behind your back. In fact, if negotiations fail, I'll need you to kill him anyway, Xiongnan chuckled. By the way, are you hurt? Just a minor wound. Illumai didn't deny it. For the Zoltiks, as long as they weren't dead, it was all minor. All right. But if I want you to kill him, that's an extra charge, yes. I know, Xiongnan answered calmly. Chapter 104, Negotiation. It was unclear how much time had passed before Amokaj slowly regained consciousness. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw a blurred figure standing in front of him. He himself was lying on a cold, hard ground. Not far off was Illumai Zoltik, standing with one hand on his hip, expressionless. Hey. Lucky for you, you ended up winning. Amokaj glared at Illumai, still sounding defiant. Oh? Aren't your eyes already restored? Illumai narrowed his own eyes and sneered. I did give you a chance to display your full power. Seems you just couldn't manage it. You. Amokaja's face turned livid. He had given his own eyes to his younger sister, Retz. Ordinarily, he was without eyes. Once his eyes returned to his main body, his strength naturally increased. When fighting Illumai, since he had regained his eyes, he should have been at full power. Illumai, in a position of guaranteed victory, simply wanted to see exactly how strong Amokaja's powers were when fully unleashed. Truth be told, he was a bit intrigued by Amokaja's nin. Though only mildly. Illumai could guess Xiongnan's reason for wanting to speak with Amokaj. After all, Xiongnan was from the Republic of Patakia. In front of the Zoltik family, that country had few real secrets. He's the one who wanted to see you. Illumai casually pointed at Xiongnan, standing near them. Certainly, Amokaj could not see Xiongnan's face clearly. He also had no idea that Illumai was on Xiongnan's payroll. From Nameless Town? Amokaj murmured these words. Evidently, he, too, had encountered people from Nameless Town before. He had even taken the eyes of one such person and added them to his collection. Just not here. He kept them in his dollhouse in Saya City, where he displayed his creations, all works of art. Let me introduce myself. My name is Xiongnan, a high-ranking officer in the Republic of Patakia's military. The reason I wanted to find you, first, you're a former member of the Phantom Troop. Second, your nin abilities are somewhat special, and I quite admire them. So said the puppet Illumai was controlling, serving as Xiongnan's interpreter. I apologize that our meeting came about in this manner. But I still wish to extend an invitation. I'd like you to join the military organization you under my command. At that, Illumai's puppet repeated the message. Ha! Hearing that, Amokaj let out a laugh full of mockery. For him to join a government group? This nameless town member was overestimating himself, wasn't he? He didn't think the concept of working with an official government was any good. Sure, a national institution would have immense power and resources, but Amokaj had once joined the Phantom Troop. Albeit to collect members as his dolls. That already showed he hated being controlled. Even in the troop, the members weren't absolutely obedient to Krallo. And if he joined the official ranks, he'd definitely be subject to restrictions, like not being allowed to harm society, etc. That was just awful. Ha 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 ha. First he stifled a chuckle, then his laughter grew louder, eventually verging on mania. After laughing, he turned to Illumai and asked, "Is this guy missing a few screws?" Illumai said nothing. Because Xiangnan's payment wasn't fully transferred yet. Through the puppet that conveyed Xiangnan's words, ignoring Amokaj's attitude, Xiangnan continued, "I can guess what you're thinking. As the person in charge, I can make you two promises. 1. If you join us, the government won't interfere with your freedom, including your little hobby of collecting eyes. 2. Within certain bounds, we can use our military resources to lend you some help, including if you happen to have conflicts with the troop in the future. The institution I lead is specifically for training non-users for the nation. Currently." Xiangnan explained slowly. Amokaj's demeanor was hostile. Even with Xiangnan's promises, Amokaj showed zero interest. Xiangnan divulged some information about Pandora's box in front of Illumai because he was aware that it was futile to hide. The Zoltik family could investigate him easily, and Illumai could figure out who Xiangnan was at any time. Indeed, the Zoltiks had connections not only in the Republic of Padakia, but with V5 as well. They had excellent ways to gather intel. Time passed. The sky above the graveyard turned crimson with sunset. Xiangnan had finished speaking, but Amokaj hadn't given any response. "Illumai." Xiangnan inhaled a breath and called out. "You want me to kill him, right?" Illumai confirmed. "During the conversation, you must have said something to him?" Xiangnan pressed. Illumai fell silent. "You manipulated the puppet to convey only my conversation with him, without including your own remarks. If it was purely for the sake of getting extra pay, I could just pay you. But that means I'll never hire you again. You found out. I thought I could fool you. Doesn't that power you guys have blocked our mutual perception? So you guessed I figured it out?" Illumai frankly admitted. Indeed, Illumai had spoken quietly to Amokaj. He didn't say much, only 2 points. First, he'd never heard of this so-called Pandora's Box group. Second, Xiangnan's official status might be huge, but his personal strength wasn't that impressive. From Amokaj's perspective, that basically meant there was no interest in cooperating. He believed that some so-called new state-run group in the Republic of Padakia was worthless, not worth his time. Even if refusal meant he might die, he was not afraid of death. Tragedy was precisely his best artistic flavor. "I think it's best if you accept him. He claims to command this Pandora's box. I don't know that group, but his status. I do know a bit about. He's truly one of the top few in Padakia's military. The Phantom Troop is no match for him. If you help him, maybe you can make more dolls." Illumai now pretended to persuade Amokaj. Amokaj stared silently. He could sense Xiangnan's sincerity. Indeed, Xiangnan had spent a fortune hiring Illumai, plus wasted so much time. For someone of Xiangnan's position, that was rare. Moreover, though he didn't fear death, letting his art end here was a pity. His gaze flickered with a twisted glimmer. Suddenly he smiled. "Fine. No problem. I'll accept." "Oh," he's agreed. Illumai used the puppet to pass along the message. "Great. Let me be clear, from today on, as a Pandora's Box member, you can ignore all official orders. You have absolute freedom, except you must obey me. That's the only condition." Xiangnan told Amokaj this, then turned around with Mengmen, ready to leave. He gestured to Illumai to release the captive. Payment would come later. With a flick of the wrist, Illumai recalled the needle stuck in Amokaj's limbs. Done. He too was about to go. But before he left, Illumai's gaze flicked at Amokaj, who now regained movement. Illumai paused slightly. Then his figure vanished into the distance. Being part of the entire conversation, Illumai was fully aware of Amokaj's every emotion. He could tell that the ex-troop member's acceptance was definitely harboring hidden motives. After all, cooperating with a national big shot, or some big shot, might be playing with fire, especially with Amokaj's personality. Once a troop member. Yet from the brief interactions Illumai had with Xiangnan, he also knew Xiangnan was incredibly shrewd. If Xiangnan was deliberately ignoring the possible danger, it could only mean one thing: Xiangnan was toying with Amokaj. The funny part was that Amokaj hadn't realized. The real one in danger might be himself. Walking along the path away from the cemetery, Illumai pocketed his phone. Payment from Xiongnan had arrived. Right then, another call came in. Illumai hesitated, then accepted it. Hisoka. Hey. Illumai responded naturally on the phone. Nothing. I just randomly asked around. Some client brought him up. Client info. I can't disclose. Oh. If you guess who it is yourself, that's not me telling you then. No, he's alive. Continuing the call, Illumai gradually disappeared into the distance. Chapter 105, News pertaining to the Dark Continent. Amokaj's matter didn't really concern Xiongnan much. For now, the other party was merely a tool he could use. He would let the fellow act arrogant under him for a while. He could guess that even if Amokaj agreed to join Pandora's box, he'd still be difficult to manage in the short term. So Xiongnan planned to ignore him until the reincarnation dimension mission began. If there was a chance, maybe he'd send Amokaj to the Heavens Arena, to help train the 3 Pandora's Boxman users, including Garo. If that didn't work out, then the fellow would have no more value to keep around. After Xiongnan and Manman both completed the Extinction Games rounds and dealt with Amokaj, Xiongnan intended to continue searching for precious gems while touring the human world, experiencing the cultures and local customs everywhere. You had to understand, up until now, aside from Mazen Continent, Yarbian Continent, the Balsa Islands of the Maiden Union, and outside of the Republic of Padakia, there were plenty of other places he hadn't been to yet. For instance, there was another domain adjacent to Azen, plus a massive landmass that bordered Whale Island, where the main character Gon lived. Up above the Yarbian Continent, or beyond the Maiden Union across the sea, to the east, there was yet another continent. Besides these enormous continental areas, there were also many archipelagos or scattered landmasses throughout the human world. The world setting depicted in the original storyline was just part of it. As a player and traveler, Xiongnan still had far too many regions to explore. In the Hunter Association, Jing Freaks, representing the Ruins Hunters, was qualified to be a 3-star hunter. This fact showed that even though human society's civilization had developed to this day, the entire Lake Island world still retained considerable mystery. Many ruins were still undiscovered. Besides the map itself, there were still many other aspects Xiongnan needed to comprehend. For example, among the creatures inhabiting the human world, magical beasts included. Many beings, though not magical beasts, still belong to the category of rare beasts. Their body structures and physiology, even appearances, were things none of them had seen in their previous life. In addition, hidden in every corner of the world were minority ethnic groups with different ways of life and social customs, and so forth. Xiongnan just happened to have this free time to learn all that thoroughly. In a few months, before the 6th round's mission began, he ought to be able to adapt himself further to this world. It's worth mentioning that Jing Freaks had enough credentials and capability to become a 3-star hunter, but simply didn't want the promotion. Otherwise, there's no way he remained just a 2-star. In the field of ruin exploration, studying all kinds of ruins, Jing's achievements stood at the apex. His contributions and merits could be considered top-notch, to the point you could call him a leading figure. It's just that his personality and style, plus his very low-key approach, meant that people outside the field of ruin studies barely knew of him. Within the Hunter Association itself, although he later became one of the 12 Zodiacs, he didn't carry much prestige either. Mainly because he was lazy, rarely involved himself in the association's internal management or affairs, showing up and disappearing unpredictably. Hardly anyone ever saw him. Initially, Xiongnan wanted to spend a few months traveling around the world with Menman. But things never went as one wished. Some news arrived from the Heavens Arena. A peculiar incident forced Xiongnan to pay attention. What did you say? On a day when Xiongnan sat on a beach beneath a parasol, eyes closed for a rare moment of leisure, he got a phone call from Garo. Usually unflappable, Xiongnan showed rare gravity upon hearing the contents. I heard it from a member of that star group. Still not sure if it's true, but it's highly likely. Some nameless town people discovered a special item on a place called Mustang Island, setting off a fierce scramble. Word has it that the item holds an unknown power, seemingly a damaged statue, connected to the Dark Continent. Word spread, and many from the Heavens Arena have already rushed there. But according to that source, the casualties are significant. And he also said those who died were all high-level players. Garo was Xiongnan agent keeping tabs on the star group and other player factions. So while training himself, climbing the arena, he never forgot that mission. Of course, Star Group had no idea about his true identity. Relying on personal skill, Garo soon got acquainted with some of them. Xiongnan clutched the phone, silent for a while. The Dark Continent. Those 4 words carried too much weight for a player. Looking at the original storyline in Hunter x Hunter, indeed, the human realm had a lot of hints connected to the Dark Continent. That didn't refer to just the disasters V5 had once brought back from the Dark Continent, but also the deep-rooted clues from ages past. For instance, Kakin Empire's Seed Urn Ceremony, the Dark Sonata mentioned by Melody the Music Hunter, or the mysterious culture of Krita clan, from which Korepika hails, with totemic patterns and murals of unknown origin. Even Korepika's tribal garb bore patterns resembling certain Dark Continent references. Like that gate leading inside the Dark Continent. Xiong Nan even suspected the Krita clan's scarlet eyes, capable of changing Nan types, faintly pointed to some mysterious power of the Dark Continent. What's more, Xiong Nan had secretly been gathering intelligence. He heard that the elders of Meteor City possessed certain strange objects. Some of them possibly tied to post-5 calamities. In the original storyline, Gon and Killua once used the Nin technique Geo to find and flip items for sale at an antique shop, some old relics harboring faint, inexplicable aura. Live forces that had detached from living processes. That aura seemed to cling to the object for a very long time, never dispersing. Recalling also the Hunter x Hunter movie version, about Jed and Netero, with Jed's power conflicting with Nin as grudge. Putting it all together suggests that not only leftover relics themselves might be linked to the Dark Continent, but also some as yet unrecognized energy within the current world. Possibly, it's all entangled with the Dark Continent in ways beyond imagination. You also had to remember, based on the existing world lore, a portion of humanity might have migrated here from the Dark Continent long ago, for some reason. Given that humans still hadn't fully uncovered Lake Island's mysteries, it really wouldn't be surprising if something from the Dark Continent turned up. Xiong Nan narrowed his eyes. The Dark Continent. These words were far too sensitive. In those earlier years, V5 had deliberately obscured everything. Whether V5 or the Hunter Association, these were the real natives of Hunter x Hunter, possessing means far exceeding those of the players. And yet now, a clue related to the Dark Continent was first discovered by the players. That was intriguing. Alright. Got it. Keep digging, let me know as soon as there's an update. Xiong Nan muttered. Yes, sir. Garo responded. Chapter 106, The Mysterious Mustang Island. Mustang Island is an unknown isle sitting alone in the middle of the sea. Its area is so small that no one pays it any mind. The island has no resources and is downright desolate. Even its name was coined only when a group of players, having discovered something tied to the Dark Continent, needed a label for their find. Before that, the place was known only by a sequence code. Aboard a naval transport, Xiong Nan stood at the bow, looking south across the glittering waves and breathing in the salty, humid wind. This was his first ocean-crossing voyage. No one else was on the vessel. It was a warship of the Republic of Padakia, tasked with taking him to his destination. The crew already held official passage papers from the Maritime Bureau. Mustang Island lies on the very edge of the high seas zone demarcated by the V5 nations. Essentially the outermost limit of humanity's territory in the Hunter x Hunter world. Beyond that point are the blockade posts on uninhabited islands where V5 keeps troops. Apart from those 5 great powers, almost no one can break through without applying to V5. The Kakin Empire being a rare exception. In short, Mustang Island is the farthest ocean coordinate an ordinary human can reach under V5 authority. Discovering something mysterious way out here would make sense, because it is well outside any settled region. For ordinary folk the trip is nearly impossible, but for players and certain factions there are plenty of ways to slip past V5. As long as they avoid the zones under strict lockdown, the line is not technically crossed. Since the Dark Continent is involved, it might be worth the gamble. Still, contemplation flickered in Xiong Nan's eyes. There had been no visible response from V5. Through Padakia he had already tried probing for information, and by rights the V5 could not be unaware. Anything touching the Dark Continent should have triggered an immediate takeover of Mustang Island and a total news blackout. So why were players still being allowed ashore? From Garo's reports, a dispute caused by a shattered statue had already raged among players for some time, and the casualties were overwhelmingly high-level players. No wonder the total player count on the system interface had dropped so sharply of late. Newcomers lack both backing and ability. They cannot evade V5's eyes to reach Mustang Island. High-level players, though, have spent years in the Hunter x Hunter world, embedding themselves in every sort of faction. Hence almost everyone drawn to the island is top tier. Extinction level 5 or higher. News of the incident spread and fermented quickly. In the earliest parties many Extinction 5 players vanished without a trace. The mere phrase Dark Continent drives players crazy. Outside the system itself, it represents the greatest potential bounty in the entire setting. If that thing really holds mysterious power, like the Seed Urn or the Dark Sonata. Then, dangerous or not, whoever masters it could gain immeasurable strength, maybe even breeze through future stages or clear an entire extinction game. As the game now stands, the further the top players advance, the heavier the pressure becomes. Many doubt they can survive the next stage. A sudden, life-changing opportunity naturally draws them like moths to a flame. Players are not natives of the Hunter x Hunter world, their mindset is still basically that of their previous lives, less colored by this reality. Whether the weight comes from the system or from frustrations carried over, they cannot turn a blind eye to the chance. Even if it might get them killed. Yet to Xiangnan the whole affair feels highly suspicious. First clue, V5's total inaction. Perhaps they investigated Mustang Island long ago, confirmed it harmless, and secured the human world accordingly. Second, the rumor seems tailored for players. Some individual or force may well be targeting the high-level players of Namel Town. The mastermind clearly understands exactly what players crave. Maybe someone on the inside is playing us, Xiangnan murmured. Call the strongest players. Others likely share his doubts, but they still show up. Out of she agreed. What if? Given how much of the Hunter x Hunter map remains undeveloped, rare artifacts truly could be dug up beyond the reach of any nation. And if he laid hands on one, the payoff would be enormous. The warship plowed through the waves for 10 full days before reaching its objective. On the canonical map, humanity's Lake Island home is only a tiny speck of the wider world, yet in reality the lake is a vast ocean. After all that time they had only edged a little way across it. From the deck Xiangnan could already see small craft drifting nearby. Some were rusted hulks, others looked to have been here ages. Corpses and broken debris bobbed in the surf. The warship circled the lush little island. Through binoculars Xiangnan saw that the landmass was merely a hill a few kilometers across, cloaked in dense forest, showing no sign of habitation. Yet in several spots scorch marks and shell craters were obvious. Plainly a pitched battle among players had already taken place. Did we check with the Transit Bureau? Has anyone besides us been granted clearance? Still scanning the shore, Xiangnan asked the soldier beside him. No, sir. We're the only recent applicant. Those boats must have slipped in unnoticed. Bring her in. He lowered the binoculars. Aye. Moments later the warship anchored offshore. Xiangnan ordered the crew to remain aboard, then took a speedboat with Menman and headed for land. They had barely stepped off the fine, soft sand when they spotted several rotting corpses. Sun and seawater had bleached away even the stench. Their attire looked mafia-like. Players fighting among themselves? Menman ventured. Possibly, Xiangnan said, striding on. Most high-level players have already carved out a niche in this world. Joining the underworld, tying themselves to national power like he did, building private forces and businesses, or swelling the ranks of the Hunter Association while enriching themselves. Even the star crowd, lacking their own backing, stick together. True lone wolves are rare. So none of them would come alone for Dark Continent power, each would bring retainers or form teams, and clashes were inevitable. The bodies here might not have been killed at the beach, more likely they fled this way. Stay alert. With no proper trails, Xiangnan followed the footprints of earlier arrivals, steadily working inland toward the hilltop. Menman nodded. Chapter 107, Trap? Rotting leaves and damp soil squelched beneath their boots as Xiangnan surveyed his surroundings. This was indeed a truly deserted island, never touched by development. Aside from an occasional bird call, there was not a trace of wildlife in the forest. Look, Menman whispered, clapping a hand over her mouth in fright. Not far away lay 18 corpses, crawling with maggots. Because the trees shaded them, the bodies had not yet fully decomposed, they had died only recently. A physician by training, Xiangnan needed only a glance to gauge roughly how each of them had met their end. In less than 15 minutes of climbing, the pair had already encountered many bodies in every conceivable posture of death. Mafia, mercenaries, and others of uncertain origin. Players were clearly among them. Only a small fraction of all players are high-level, Xiangnan muttered as he slowed his pace instead of rushing for the summit. Most of these dead must be the helpers those players brought along. The Mustang Island incident had driven the player count, as shown in the system, from 400 down to about 350. By Xiangnan's rough math, once you subtract the low-level players who had died naturally in the meantime, the rest of the eliminations were almost all high-level players who had come ashore. At least 30 of them. Do not underestimate that figure, it was nearly a tenth of all remaining players. If the original 400 included only a few dozen players of extinction level 5 or higher, half of that elite core had now been wiped out. The dead were the very top tier of the current player community. The strongest known player in the world was only Extinction 8, extrapolating from that, there might be perhaps 20 players at level 7-8. The rest would be levels 5-6. And the higher the level, the fewer the people. By that logic, most of the corpses here belong to level 5s, with level 6s making up the balance. So strange. Not a single living soul, Mangman murmured. With so many players and their retinues landing on the island, could they really all be dead? They had not seen a single survivor. It felt as though setting foot on the island meant certain death. No hope of leaving alive. The boats that still drifted offshore seemed to confirm it. Some force was erasing every living thing that tried to land. Come on, Xiongnan said, unmoved. Manman clutched his sleeve, uneasy. Before long they reached the mountaintop. What is that? Up the slope stood a ruined structure, overgrown with vines and greenery. It resembled a small palace. Judging from the exposed stonework, it was ancient, weathered by countless years. Boss. Manman gasped. Could this be an archaeological site? If this battered ruin predated human society as they knew it, it might really connect to the Dark Continent. Xiongnan even suspected that human civilization on Lake Island had suffered a break. Perhaps migrants from the Dark Continent had settled here first. Expressionless, he stepped closer, parted the clinging plants, and examined the outer wall. Carved into the stone were strange murals, tiny figures representing humans, the sun and moon, and the sea. In the water loomed a huge beast. An animal's head on a human torso. Its maw gaping wide as though to swallow the surging ocean and the humans alike. Barefooted people dashed across the sea's surface, fleeing the monster's devouring jaws, while the foremost figure knelt as if in worship, holding aloft some object. Vaguely, it looked like a small serpent. The instant he saw it, Xiongnan involuntarily thought of the Dark Continent. His breathing paused a beat. These primitive motifs were strikingly similar to scenes hinted at in the original manga. The players who had dared land here were, after all, seeking the Dark Continent's power. The entire vine-shrouded palace was barely 10 meters across. More a solitary relic than the grand ruins of a city. After circling halfway around, the two of them found an entrance. Xiongnan pushed aside the curtain like vines draping the doorway and stepped inside first. The hall was dim and smelled of damp. Xiongnan had no time to look around before a jolt of danger flared in his mind. From the darkness a blade flashed, he whipped up a surgical scalpel to parry, knocking the attacker's long sword aside and, without hesitation, yanked Manman backward, bolting out of the building. Someone's here. Bursting through the hanging vines, Xiongnan landed outside, eyes narrowed. Good thing I stayed alert, he thought, otherwise he would have walked straight into a trap. Ordinary players, desperate for Dark Continent power, would have plunged into the ruin headfirst and lowered their guard the moment they were inside. Giving the enemy the perfect opening. Well, you actually dodged it. Unbelievable. The assailant strode out, long blade in hand, sounding astonished. He wore something like a Japanese samurai outfit, hair disheveled, a patch over his left eye so that only the right one seemed sound. For him to hide his aura that thoroughly, his mastery of Zetsu had to be superb. Clearly a high-level player. Your reactions are impressive, the man said. You're the first who hasn't been instant killed by my draw technique. Judging by your skill, you've cleared at least stage 6, right? You tell me, Xiongnan replied lightly, spinning the gleaming scalpel between his fingers. Then he glanced at the ruin, confirming his suspicion. So the rumor about a shattered statue was just bait. Your trap? Not mine. Ours, the man laughed. At his word Xiongnan whipped around. Somehow another figure had appeared behind him and Manman, a person in a black cloak and face veil. Their features unreadable. Only players truly understand other players, Xiongnan said coolly. The two of you set up this elaborate snare and even had the power to slaughter everyone who landed. Don't tell me you've reached Extinction 7 already. Veteran players, are you? Can't say for sure, the swordsman chuckled. Level and time of arrival aren't equal. Maybe you came to Hunter x Hunter before us. Just grew slow and cleared stages too leisurely. He raised his blade. Looks like the two of you are probably going to die here. Before we do, Xiongnan sighed softly, could I ask you a few questions? Chapter 108, Strange Feeling. Xiongnan's craniotomy interrogation technique cannot be used under just any circumstances. First he has to keep the subject alive, only then can he open the skull and question the target. Otherwise the person would simply die on the table. Here on a barren island with no proper medical setup, that is impossible. Even non-users cannot match the resilience of chimera ants. So if Xiongnan wants answers, he must start by showing weakness and hope the enemy will talk. From the outside this palace looks genuine. Clearly an ancient relic, so maybe people really did live here long ago. But those figures carved on the stone wall. You added them, didn't you? Xiongnan asked. The images felt familiar precisely because they were carved too crudely. Although the patterns tried hard to mimic scenes from the original manga, They were made up. Any player landing here would instinctively assume the ruin was connected to the Dark Continent, become excited, drop their guard, enter the hall, and get killed. That sort of cheap trick doesn't look like something a well-read, lore-savvy player would devise. The V5 probably visited, confirmed the object, and knew there was no shattered statue. Xiongnan cared because such inside information is hard to obtain. Anyone using this palace as bait must know something about V5 classified data. The one-eyed man said nothing, but his face admitted the truth. Clearly his background was anything but ordinary. Ma. What do you think? Kill him outright, or test him first? The swordsman suddenly shouted toward the black-robed figure behind Xiongnan and Menmen. Gauge his strength first, the veiled figure rasped, a baleful aura spreading around him. Hunting weaker players. Are you doing it to keep the system's elimination rate down? Xiongnan ignored their discussion and kept probing. The swordsman's expression shifted. Elimination rate? What are you talking about? Playing dumb? His answer actually puzzled Xiongnan. Don't tell me. You haven't even started the dimensional placement matches yet? The one-eyed man sucked in a breath. You're not Extinction 6? Could it be Extinction 5? Whoosh. Impatient, the black-robed figure lunged forward. Realizing he could draw out no more information, Xiongnan hurled a throwing knife and dashed straight at the one-eyed swordsman. Without a word, Menmen switched to her second personality, burst out Nin, and intercepted the cloaked man, drawing fire and buying time. Clang, clang, clang. Blinding arcs of steel split the air. The swordsman's lightning-fast draw technique. In mere heartbeats he swung 7 or 8 times, yet to the naked eye the blade seemed never to leave its sheath. Only the rifts of compressed air proved the cuts were real. Ferocious as they were, Xiongnan slipped through them all, even catching several strikes on his tiny scalpel with crisp metallic chimes. The swordsman's face changed. He had assumed Xiongnan blocked him earlier only because he had held back. Apparently not. This man's skill. Before the thought finished, Xiongnan pounced like a sprinting leopard. His white-gloved arms crossed, forming 2 black afterimages that lashed like iron whips, twisting through the space the swordsman occupied. The figure shattered like foam. Just an after-image. The real swordsman had flipped backward, planting both feet flat against the palace wall, flicked his thumb to draw a few centimeters of steel, then kicked off like an arrow. Dazzling white blade swept in. Faster even than Xiongnan. Shhh. A slash 10 meters long ripped the earth, flinging soil aside. Xiongnan slipped past, flung his coat to blind the enemy, and in the same motion scattered a dozen scalpels that flashed like stars. The swordsman's rhythm never broke. His technique flowed into a storm of contiguous slashes, a silvery barrier 10 meters wide. It shattered the scalpels, churned the air, and only then slid back into its sheath. From a distance Xiongnan narrowed his eyes. For a split second he had nearly been minced. Something's off. He muttered. Nin technique? To hide in the hall and ambush him, the man's Nin mastery had to be high. But this sword art? Astonishing speed and range. Felt unlike Nobunaga's. Nobunaga had to strike with the blade itself. This man sent Soradora far beyond the edge. Emitter? No, it still seemed wrong. You're an enhancement type, aren't you? Xiongnan called. The swordsman stared, touching a cut on his brow. One scalpel had slipped through the storm and nearly skewered his head. Annoyance chilled his eye. He stepped forward without replying. In a blink he was a phantom again. Xiongnan retreated, using throwing knives to keep distance while he read the enemy's moves. Figures blurred around the palace, sword darks carved crisscross trenches, sliced even the thick stone walls, yet never touched Xiongnan. While scalpels stabbed the swordsman in several places. Enhancement type. Definitely, Xiongnan concluded, and finally saw what had bothered him. The sword style relied on set footwork, often leaping high to strike downward. Hand motions altered the power according to fixed forms. It was built on a formal system, too rigid. Utterly unlike Nobunaga's instinctive, battle-honed method. Enough. As the opponent gathered for another blistering draw, Xiongnan white gloves pulsed with Nin. He whispered a few words. The swordsman, sprinting in, was estimating distance and Xiongnan possible dodges when his right eye blurred. Went black. Total blindness struck. In that heartbeat Xiongnan flashed behind him. The man sensed danger, but the sudden impairment slowed him half a beat. His blade left the sheath only halfway before a crushing blow hit. Crack. Both arms twisted like rope, a kick snapped one leg, white bone poking through bloody skin. Ah! He screamed and toppled. Xiongnan showed no emotion, turning to check Menmen's side of the fight. Chapter 109, Things on Menmen's side were going far better than Xiongnan had expected. He had braced himself for a hard fight, Yet the black-robed man was actually being driven back by her second personality's attack. Wielding a dagger and guided by flawless feral instinct, Mangman struck with brutal ferocity, leaving her opponent covered in wounds. His robe was already shredded, exposing the face of a gray-haired old man. At a glance Xiangnan saw why the elder was no match for her. His stamina was poor and his combat skills shallow. Once she forced him into close quarters, he had very few techniques to neutralize her assault. Still, he was a high-level player. At the very least rich in battle experience. What really caught Xiangnan's attention, however, was the power the man was using. "Is that on?" he muttered, surprised at the black aura coiling around the elder. "No wonder he looks so miserable," Xiangnan mused. On, malice, is a concept introduced in the Hunter x Hunter movies. It is the power wielded by Jed, whom Xiangnan had mentioned before. Jed had been a friend of Netero in their youth. He led a covert group called Shadow, which handled the Hunter Association's dirtiest tasks. Much of the association's present influence could be traced back to Shadow's work. Netero in the light, Jed in the dark. When Shadow grew too unruly and drew V5's attention, Netero, unable to bring his friend back to the right path, personally struck Jed down. Some of Jed's followers are still alive, meaning the organization endures. If On has appeared, then Jed must have resurrected, for he is its sole source. Xiangnan had not expected any player to side with that faction. Nor that Jed would return so soon. In the original story, Shadow reappears later at Heaven's Arena, when Gon and Kill are already accomplished hunters. On corrodes an user's mind and spirit, but Manman's second personality has no independent will. She is a blank slate. Moreover, the Nen technique Xiangnan devised for her is itself a form of emotional contamination, not unlike On. Thus the Elder's power failed to harm her as he had hoped. Not every high-level player is broadly powerful, Xiangnan thought, watching Manman slice off several of the old man's fingers. Some clear the stages on the strength of a single unusual ability. The very atmosphere seemed stained with the Elder's dark aura, thick with negative emotion. That explained the puzzle. All the corpses Xiangnan had passed bore different mortal wounds, clear signs of squad mates turning on one another. Slain not by outside foes but by internal betrayal. It also explained how just two men, the one-eyed swordsman and this robed elder, could wipe out every player who landed on Mustang Island. In the canon, On is the antithesis of Nen. Unlike Nen, it springs less from the body than from the psyche. Anger, regret, obsession. That is why Jed could revive decades after death. On is born of lingering grudges, touching the soul itself. If Jed left post-mortem Nen clinging to an object or corpse that was never fully destroyed, resurrection would be possible. Xiangnan's own Shinjinri studies stress the same principle. An user's strength comes from the heart. Spirit is everything. Where the mind is flawed, On seeps in, eroding reason. Most hunters who lack deep meditative discipline are easily dominated, becoming puppets of their own negativity. As happened to the Heaven's Arena floor masters, and even Gon himself, in the film. For Nen users without a strong spiritual core, On is almost a natural counter. An outright trump card. Small wonder this elder, though poor in body techniques, could slay so many players with such a rare and dreaded power. Manman's special state. And her Nen. Give her a certain resistance, Xiangnan noted, though he could see the black energy slowly staining her aura. It was a gradual assimilation, but before it could spread from her second personality to her primary one, she would have ample time to finish the old man off. Xiangnan himself would likely have found the matchup harder than she did. The elder was now in dire straits. Pale, hunched, one knee on the ground, supporting himself with a hand. Above him the girl's hair whipped in the wind, her eyes were utterly cold. She flicked her dagger straight at his throat. His right hand fingers were severed, his chest lay open and bleeding. Exhausted, he could hold out no longer. Just as the blade was about to end him, Xiangnan spoke, "Don't kill him." At once Manman halted. The tip hovered scarcely 2 or 3 centimeters from the elder's neck. Cold sweat dripped from his chin. One On user and one swordsman whose style mimics an emitter's reach. Interesting, Xiangnan said, walking over. The elder dared not move, Manman had not stepped back, and the dagger was still aimed at him. "Are you satisfied with our strength?" Xiangnan asked. The old man kept silent, glancing sideways at him. These two players, drawn by the Mustang Island rumor, had exceeded every conventional expectation. Frighteningly strong. He had never before seen an user immune to On. "You're with Shadow, aren't you?" Xiangnan pressed. "Yes," the elder croaked. Any player who sensed On would guess as much. So every player's fate is different, and their growth takes all sorts of paths, Xiangnan smiled. "You two are Extinction 5? The elder ventured, uncertainty in his voice. If this was Extinction 5 power, it was terrifying. Yet he knew the player ranks sometimes produced monster rookies. He had met one or two before, but they too had died in the end. We can discuss ranks later. Xiongnan crouched before him. Right now. Use your on me. Corrupt my mind. The elder's expression changed. No one had ever asked to be attacked by on. Are you sure? He asked. As a player he could guess Xiongnan's aim. Relax. Before I lose control, I guarantee she alone can kill the two of you. So you'd better pray I stay fine. Xiongnan propped his chin with one hand and pointed to Manman with the other, smiling. After a pause the old man inhaled deeply and lunged, seizing Xiongnan by the throat. Black energy poured down his arm. Veins on Xiongnan's neck darkened, the stain creeping toward his face, his eyes, as though ink had spilled into them, began to change. Chapter 110, Experiencing on Erosion. The moment on entered his body, Xiongnan was flooded with a tangle of emotions. Rage, bloodlust. Followed by a rampant growth of dark impulses in the depths of his mind. At first those feelings were utterly uncontrollable. On seemed to know the most vulnerable corner of a person's heart. Images flashed through Xiongnan's head, scenes of his former life as a mercenary, then of his time in this world, killing one on-user after another, dissecting players' skulls and tasting the thrill of learning. That sweet rush of battle, the excitement of cracking each hidden rule in the system's game. Thoughts twisted together and quickly warped, plunging his soul into alluring hallucinations from which he could not pull free. Outwardly his body trembled, drool trickled from the corner of his mouth. His nen flared out of control. Yet the aura pouring from him was no ordinary nen, but the same dark, baleful energy as on itself. Seeing this, the old man gave a wicked grin. Clearly this fellow knew far too little about on. Once a target was assimilated he would become a puppet, a corpse driven by negative emotion. Then, as an on-user, the elder could bend Xiongnan to his will. Make him attack the girl and so escape this predicament. But in the next instant the elder's eyes widened. For although Xiongnan's face contorted, a faint struggle, a flicker of resistance, appeared. The old man held his breath and poured out still more on. Yet the sinister pressure around Xiongnan was already receding, the oppressive aura ebbed. Snap. Half a minute later a powerful hand clamped around the elder's wrist, prying it from Xiongnan's throat. The man's eyes, once solid black, cleared. Black pupils, white sclera. His reason restored. The elder's own eyes bulged in disbelief. You. Words failed him. How interesting, Xiongnan said, his grip iron strong as he lowered the elder's arm. It's just as I thought, this power feeds on a person's spirit, warps the mind into a vessel for negative emotion. Nen, being a union of body and spirit, naturally shifts its attribute once the spirit is altered. He mused, gaze deep. An user can't change his Hotse type at will. An enhancer may borrow traits from emission or transmutation if he's close on the hexagram, but the core stays enhancement. Even a 50-50 hybrid can't switch tracks after his ability is set. On, however, can alter the spirit. Perhaps even the soul. And so force Nen itself to mutate? Is an N-type nothing but a shackle forged by the soul? He murmured. Then he looked straight at the old man. Your on must rely on some single negative obsession to keep you conscious, yes. Otherwise that torrent of malice would leave you mindless. Yes, the elder answered, scalp tingling. He had met geniuses and monsters among players, but never felt such a visceral sense of abnormality. On plants itself differently in every host. Anger for some, regret for others, brutality for yet others. Shaped by one's life and background. The visions I saw were all slaughter and curiosity, none of the mundane grudges. Social rank, poverty, romance. Unlocked precisely onto my own dark cravings and amplified them until my mind slipped. Xiongnan shook his head at the elder. But Jed's revival is recent, so you've had little time to master this power. That's why I dared let you try. He went on. With a strong enough will you feel the hallucination, yes, but soon realize it's nothing but a monotonous poison. Flat, repetitive, less vivid than a dream, just shards of emotion. The old man licked his dry lips. Does this lunatic even know what he's saying? Still, I did gain something. First, wrestling with on is excellent training for mental strength. Second, Nen's rigid typing seems tied to the soul itself. But you can't wield Nen and on together, it's one or the other. At the moment, on does counter Nen to a degree, but the system is too narrow, its ceiling low. It depends solely on magnifying the user's darkness. No fine structure, no room to build. The more malice you add, the more it harms you. Lose the obsession that keeps you lucid and you hit a dead end. The elder stared, stunned, even he had never analyzed the art with such depth. Yes, Xiongnan said softly. For temporary gain you chose a path that almost certainly ends in death. Their eyes met. What is your obsession? Hating every player. becoming the only one to clear all 10 extinction rounds. The old man's face turned ashen, his eyes were empty. Chapter 111, The Legendary HXH Player. Xiangnan had long studied the overall power level of the player base, gathering and analyzing a great deal of material. Under ordinary circumstances, even after clearing all 10 extinction rounds and becoming a fully bound representative of the Hunter x Hunter world, a player merely gains the right to bargain with major story characters. Most average players, until they reach a certain rank, are actually weaker than many canon fodder extras in the original manga. Of course, there are always a few exceptions. People like him and Manman whose strength far exceeds their current level. Both the gray-haired elder and the one-eyed swordsman were Extinction 7. By Xiangnan's yardstick that put them around the quasi-floor master tier of Heaven's arena. Roughly the level needed to enter the 200-plus floors and rack up 5 or more wins. Yet the combat power they displayed was clearly beyond that bracket. Heaven's arena floor master is not as prestigious as one might think. Even Zushi eventually became a master, and that group also contains monsters like Hisoka and Krallo. Talent is wildly uneven. When Xiangnan calls these two quasi-floor masters, he is comparing them to fighters of Zushi's caliber, not to the true elites. In short, for Extinction 7 players, one wielding on and the other a special sword art, both already exceeded his expectations. The elder had chosen a highly niche power-up path inside the Hunter world, while the one-eyed man was even more unusual. A little later Xiangnan and Manman left Mustang Island, taking the elder and the swordsman aboard the warship. He gave them rudimentary surgery to stabilize their wounds. He had spared them for information. Unlike many players, Xiangnan bears no blanket grudge. If someone does not threaten his interests, he is perfectly willing to let them live. Seeing the vessel waiting at sea, the captive pair realized at once that his background was anything but simple. Faced with his questions, they answered frankly, knowing all too well what refusal would mean. The elder's name was Pigeon, the swordsman's Orban. Ah. So that's it, Xiangnan murmured as Orban finished his story. Orban had already taken part in 2 rounds of the reincarnation dimension placement matches. The seeding phase, so to speak. According to him, before a player finishes the 10 extinction rounds, the system will periodically send him to other worlds to complete missions. Those performances are used to assess a hidden score. In future, once a player enters the official reincarnation league, the worlds, and therefore the opponents he is matched against are chosen according to that score. So you fake this Mustang incident to trim down the pool of Extinction 5+ players, skew the system's balance, and at the same time filter out people strong enough to recruit as teammates? Xiangnan asked. Exactly. You may not realize it, but once you've fought a single placement match you see the pattern. The 10 extinction rounds are only a warm-up. The system monitors everything you do. Impress it and it cultivates you. Missions appear with better rewards and richer resources. Orban was swathed in bandages and looked miserable, but non-users can recover so long as the wounds are not fatal. Even if Xiangnan's blows had broken both his arms and a leg, Xiangnan could use none to have that recovery time, but until he knew their full story he would not offer. Our own results in the extinction missions were only middling, Orban continued, and we never got that system favor. Then, in another world, I heard a secret. If, within your starter world, you jump ahead and become one of the few remaining high-level players, say by eliminating other Extinction 5+, you force the system to tilt resources toward you simply to keep total player power up. Rarity drives value, right? He did not dare lie, Xiangnan could surely tell. At the same time we wanted to identify capable allies. Fewer high-level players means a higher chance the system will throw the good ones together in the same squad. Yes, it harms others for our gain, he admitted, but people risk death for crumbs all the time. We want to reach the endgame. Nothing more. Xiangnan nodded. At present the Hunter world holds only a few dozen Extinction 5+ players. You killed nearly half. Extinction 6 and 7 together, maybe 20? And Extinction 8? Probably just a handful. We don't know the exact tally, Orban said. Among Extinction 7 I've met 11. Including the 2 of us. Across 2 missions, 5-man teams, 6 are dead, so 7 remain. Anyone at Extinction 7 who understands the plot and has visited other worlds would spot our trap instantly, he added. Only Extinction 5s who've never left this world, and Extinction 6s with just one jump, would fall for it. Your sword style. Did you learn it in Ryur Kenshin? Xiangnan asked. Orban nodded. Heighten Mitsurugi-ru. I only scratched the surface, though. That's why my slashes can project external blade aura. Players can spend dimension coins in other worlds to obtain power-ups, he went on. That's why a world like Hunter, whose baseline power is modest, can nevertheless climb into the top 16. The player who once led Hunter to the very summit used that method. Plus deep exploitation of Dark Continent lore. Otherwise, with only what humanity has shown so far, we'd struggle to crack the top 100. He sighed, touching the patch over his ruined left eye. Compared to some worlds I've visited, Hunter is unbelievably safe. No rival factions yet flooding in. But after this grace period you'll learn how terrifying the Reincarnation League really is. The 2 worlds I visited were almost destroyed. Stripped by higher tier worlds for resources. And that was the placement level. The lowest difficulty in the Multiverse League, he added bitterly. The only good news is this world's old reputation, thanks to the legend of a certain predecessor. Veterans from other worlds still flinch when they hear we're from Hunter x Hunter. Xiong Nan listened silently. Even after only 2 side dungeons, Orban had gathered considerable intel. Information that plainly circulated across the player community once someone managed to leave this world. What was that predecessor's name? Xiong Nan asked when he heard the phrase Dark Continent, his eyes narrowing. Even Netero, apex of the current pyramid, had only skirted its shore and come back defeated. Only beyond Netero ever made a true attempt. The player who had once carried Hunter to the top of the league was evidently long dead, his world slot reset by the system. Hence the locals knew nothing of him. This player was called Mai, Orban said softly. The name of the one who had once made Hunter x Hunter resound throughout the entire multiverse. Chapter 112, Better Me Than You. Mai. Xiong Nan read the name aloud. Explore the Dark Continent, eh? Indeed. Across the whole multiverse, only by securing the mysterious powers that lie on the Dark Continent could one hope to stand up to other worlds. That also means Mai really has set foot on the Dark Continent, just like Dawn Freaks. To the players, that is almost unbelievable. Under normal circumstances. Not to mention these players. Even the very strongest hunters might spend a lifetime without qualifying to enter the Dark Continent. Let alone come back alive. The information Pigeon and Orban provided was therefore invaluable to Xiong Nan. It deepened his understanding of the reincarnation dimension. He spent the entire day talking with them. Although the 2 were hardly saints and plainly meant to exploit other players, from the standpoint of personal gain that was nothing unusual. This game is brutally competitive, better another dies than I, right? But because of the stunt you 2 pulled, there are even fewer players above Extinction 5 now. Among the roughly 300 survivors, most are probably rookies. That's dragged down the overall level of everyone who's made it into Hunter so far. Xiong Nan laced his fingers, thinking. On the other hand, Pigeon countered, rare players like us will get more resources from the system. Resources in this world are limited, fewer people at the table means a bigger slice of cake for each of us. From what you've told me about the reincarnation dimension, Xiong Nan said, even though we players fight and kill one another, we're still grasshoppers tied to the same rope. If we want to oppose other worlds, we have to rely on our collective strength. We can't worry about that now, Orban replied with a wry smile. With our ability, we don't even know if we can pass the extinction games. Looking that far ahead is pointless. Xiong Nan activated his Nen. A pair of white gloves materialized. He glanced at Orban. Consultation over. Surgery begins. The gloves suddenly turned scarlet, as if soaked in blood. An expression of his transmutation great within his conjurer type Nen. That's why he was sure that Kite, also a conjurer, had transmutation mixed into his own Nen makeup. The white glove ability lets him diagnose a target's current condition. But making that diagnosis is up to the doctor himself. And only after an examination. In combat, that exam means he must force a suitable state onto the enemy so the ailment can take effect. He makes the target sick. For example, in his fight with Maki he struck her chest and abdomen, disrupting her breathing and injuring her thorax. Exactly the conditions for Nemotrax, so once the ability triggered, she was afflicted. Orban's blindness was caused by blood from a cut on his brow seeping into his eyes during battle. Xiong Nan simply turned that into a disease, robbing him of sight. His Nen, Hands of Love, is stepwise, consultation, then surgery. The white gloves signify consultation, only when that ends can they turn red and the surgical phase begin. Naturally, there are limits. First, the consultation carries risk, because the exam usually means close quarters grappling. Second, if he fails to diagnose while the gloves are white, they can't turn red. There's a time limit. Third, the power has a weakness, the target can, in theory, use their own abilities to make him misdiagnose, though doing so follows certain rules most people could neither detect nor achieve. Even so, Xiong Nan considers this setup the strongest effect he can safely handle. Numb. He tore off Orban's bandages, ran a fingertip over the skin of Orban's arm, and spoke a single word. Orban's eyes widened. He felt no pain at all, as though anesthetized. His entire body went numb, out of his control, only his mind stayed clear. More astonishing, Xiangnan wasn't using a scalpel. His finger merely brushed the skin and the flesh parted smoothly on its own. Inside the wound he saw the splintered bones of Orban's hand. "Repair," he ordered. None flowed from the glove like water into the marrow. The scalpel liquefied, transmuted into tiny steel plates that pressed against the cracks and knit them together. Clean. Pigeon stood by, dumbfounded. As a high-level player himself, he could tell how overwhelmingly tyrannical this ability was. "You're a doctor?" Pigeon stared at Xiangnan, deep in thought. "Suture." Again Xiangnan ignored him. The severed muscle fibers beneath Orban's skin wove together, the wound closed without even a scar, leaving only a faint white line that would be invisible unless examined closely. He repeated the process on Orban's legs. At last, with the word surgery complete, the conjured gloves vanished. Hands in his pockets, Xiangnan rose and turned to leave. "Given the current state of the player faction, we'll very likely have to form teams someday. If you kill off every high-level player, it won't matter if only 2 of us are left. We'll still have to run placement matches. More is better than less. My view differs from yours. Once a player reaches Extinction 7 they can apply to form teams themselves, so we should leave some possibilities open for newcomers. We're all on the same boat. Don't push things too far." His tone was calm. The numbness faded from Orban's body. He flexed cautiously, though stiff and still painful. He was 100 times better than moments ago. "I understand." Orban's eyes burned with sudden fervor. "Boss. Could you fix my eyesight too?" The way he addressed Xiangnan had changed. "Later," Xiangnan replied, glancing at the old man. "One reminder, the reason you could join the Shadow Troop is almost certainly because you unlocked a plot point. But on the canonical timeline, assuming nothing diverges, even if Jed shows up in the future he'll be killed by Nav and the others. With the help of the protagonist group. Jed is the source of Malicenin, and your ability comes from him. Once he dies, your power will vanish as well." With that, he walked away. Pigeon's face went pale at those words, but Orban grew excited. Xiangnan had implied the problem was solvable. "Boss. May we leave?" Since Xiangnan had healed Orban, they knew he meant them no harm. Pigeon leapt up and called out. Having tasted defeat at Xiangnan's hands, they were convinced. And sensed he genuinely wanted players to stick together. Still, they were nervous, uncertain what he planned next. "Orban can go. You stay," Xiangnan said without turning, eyes flicking back to Pigeon. "You're useful to me." His smile was eerily pleasant. It made the old man shiver involuntarily. Chapter 113, Gains. Xiangnan and Manman kept on traveling. Only now their little tour group had grown from 2 people to 4. Inside a hotel room Pigeon once again tried to erode Xiangnan's mind with his Malicenin. Yet, oddly enough, the malice did not pollute the aura pouring out of Xiangnan's body, instead it settled into a kind of equilibrium. The energy seething around him brimmed with dark, negative emotion. Yet underneath it pulsed a rock-solid resolve. An user's aura always mirrors a user's mental state, since part of it is spiritual energy. Xiangnan was deliberately using that malice to hone his own psyche. When Pigeon first heard the request he thought it was insane. To an user, malice is like strong poison. Withstanding it once does not mean you can break free every time. Fall in even once and the consequences are disastrous. Even if you wake up again you leave a festering weakness deep in the heart. But Xiangnan insisted on trying. In fact, after most big shots awaken, their solitary training tends to echo the image of Wing and Biscuit's Shinjunra from the anime. Cultivating the heart. Within that tradition the core is precisely the mind. Xiangnan clearly remembered Nitaro saying, "Conviction is the greatest power. The wider your heart, the stronger your strength." Young Nitaro had hit a ceiling and looked for a breakthrough, not outside but deep within. High in the snowy mountains, braving baking sun and cutting blizzards, he threw 10,000 punches a day, each one executed with absolute sincerity. That, too, is a way to forge the will. Yet Xiangnan could never mimic Nitaro's feat, and frankly almost no one in Hunter x Hunter could. He believed every one of the old man's punches carried genuine intent and technique. Even so, in the end Nitaro's revelation was simply gratitude. Gratitude toward nature, toward all things, toward existence itself. And that became the faith that sustained him. Likewise, bombarding himself with malice and resisting it again and again so that his soul never strays is also a training method. Different ment styles bring different disciplines. With a mentor you get guidance, without one you must grope for your own way. Hisoka the Phantom Troop, for instance, surely walks a very different mental path. Xiangnan's method just looks less wholesome, more like a dark detour. It works fast. And spares him Nitaro's years of effort. but it can never reach Nitero's height. The exercise is demanding for both of them. Pigeon must meter his malice output carefully and raise it step by step until Xiangnan can ignore the harm altogether and his spirit has been quenched to steel. In short, Pigeon has become a full-time tool. Now he understood why Xiangnan had insisted he stay. Half an hour later the oppressive black aura in the room dispersed. Xiangnan opened his eyes. Pigeon, soaked in sweat and gasping, looked close to collapse. Xiangnan flexed, raised one hand before his face and studied it. Aura flowed across his palm more smoothly than before. Hey! He grinned. Greater mental strength lets him manipulate Nen with finer precision and execute techniques more expertly. Precisely the weak link in his current power set. Your mastery over aura determines how high your technique can climb. With a strong enough mind he would one day lace together every basic skill. Ten, Zetsu, Ren, Hatsu. And even advanced combinations like Shu, In, Jiu, plus top-tier moves such as En, Ryu, Ken, Ko. So naturally that they would feel like extensions of his own body. He could already use some high-level tricks, but time had been short and his spirit still needed tempering, so his execution was rough. Something that showed in the fight with Maki. Not bad. Get a good rest. We start again tomorrow. The look he gave Pigeon was the hungry gleam of a wolf in grandmother's clothing. Pigeon gulped and nodded, cursing this lunatic under his breath. Even as a non-nen user he understood the risk. If Orban were the subject, he'd have snapped already. One slip inside that torrent of negativity and you scar the mind forever. And even your aura can be tainted. Xiangnan must be mad. There was no escape for Pigeon, while Orban shadowed Xiangnan with an obvious goal, begging him to cure the blindness in his left eye. Both men had become Xiangnan's retainers, but Pigeon had it worst. Training with him day in and day out, too frightened even to say no. Orban, when free, sparred with Menmen. After half a year the already aging Pigeon was a full-size slimmer and visibly exhausted. Fortunately Xiangnan finally let him go. Pigeon's malice could no longer affect him at all. Xiangnan's mental fortitude now felt downright unnatural. This method, frankly, only Xiangnan would dare try, no one else could copy it. Orban, meanwhile, had witnessed the miracle of Xiangnan's nen, the eye patch was gone and his left eye restored. They exchanged contact info and parted ways in a port city on the European continent. The past few months had been pleasantly relaxed for Xiangnan and Menmen. Beyond toughening his spirit with malice, he never neglected regular nen practice and even coached the lazy Menmen whenever he had time. Touring, hunting rare gemstones, prying more intel about the other worlds Pigeon and Orban had visited. He never really set everything aside. On a street outside the harbor Xiangnan suddenly stopped and stared into space amid the passing crowd. With a thought his aura expanded outward in a circle about 2 meters across. Even with his eyes closed he could track Menmen's every move inside that sphere. Being able to cast N freely proved his Nen level had risen. Nobunaga's N is about 2 meters too, he mused. At my current level I can hold 2 meters for 2 minutes. That's not bad. Grandpa Zeno's ulti can blink at several hundred meters, Neferpitu's is even scarier. But the size of N depends on technique, not raw strength, everyone shapes it to their own needs. Nobunaga keeps it small because that's the perfect distance for his sword. The only direct factor is aura volume. He pulled the aura back. This time on Mustang Island really paid off. I patched the shortfall in my technique and my mental power soared. What's left is the body. Expanding my aura reserves. He glanced down at Menmen, who was looking up at him. Let's go, he said, and the two of them set off once more. Chapter 114, Extinction Round 6. A few days later. Heaven's Arena. More than a year had passed since Xiangnan last set foot here. This time he had came to inspect the training results of Garo and the other would-be Pandora's Box members. The Republic of Patakia had long been sending its best soldiers from every military district to Heaven's Arena to gain real combat experience and refine their fighting skills. Among them, the earliest arrivals, Garo, Sigma, and their peers, had naturally climbed the highest. 5 of them had reached the 250th floor or higher, and another 10 had fought their way to roughly the 200th floor. For ordinary people that was already an impressive level. Remember, Heaven's Arena gathers elite fighters from all over the world. And now, with the star group effectively defunct and many players having vanished after the Mustang Island incident, only a handful of star members were still active here. That vacuum had lured a wave of rookie players to the tower. They, too, had begun imitating story characters by climbing floors to arm themselves. Rather than doing what Xiangnan had done, studying match footage, sparring with mundane martial artists, grasping underlying principles and techniques, and thereby awakening as an elite non-user. Xiangnan could afford that approach for 3 reasons. 1. In his previous life he had been a mercenary. 2. He knew how to tap the military's resources and muscle. 3. His innate talent, within the system's limits, was top-tier insight. Most players did not share that gift, so the fastest path for them was still Heaven's Arena. For Pidocchia's soldiers, though, the higher they rose the harder each promotion became. Progress slowed. As for the 3 non-users bred by Pidocchia's old program, now above the 200th floor, they were currently barred from fighting. Arena rules above 200F disqualified them after too many losses. Entering again would require a long wait. Still, they had already reaped the training they needed. Garo, Sigma, and the other Elite 5 who had cleared 150F no longer had the innocent look they once wore. Heaven's Arena had shown them human complexity, the many faces of mankind, and the importance of focus training. They now understood how deep and rich the discipline of combat really was. It was only after reaching Heaven's Arena that they also learned a surprise. Menmen, the quiet girl who always trailed their captain, had once been a contender here. She had fought well past the 200th floor long ago, but because she failed to enter a match within the allotted time she had been deregistered. To climb again she would probably have to start over. Tase. Inside a fighter's lounge, Xiang Nan reclined on his sofa, glancing at the tall man standing before him and giving an order. Sir. The man stepped forward and saluted. He was one of Pidocchia's 3 non-users, the other 2 were Noah and Tina. Garo. Sir. Sigma. Sir. For the time being, Xiang Nan said, you 3 will manage and command everyone training in Heaven's Arena. Anyone who reaches the 150th floor falls under your care. Your job is to teach them basic nin cultivation. How much they grasp is up to them. Do not let them construct Hatsu abilities yet. When that time comes, I will handle it. At this stage we can afford to spend time on fundamentals, and Heaven's Arena is the perfect grindstone. A solid foundation is more important than anything else. Once we have 15 qualified fighters, the first batch of Pandora's Box members is set. Anyone who reaches 150F after that is only reserve personnel. When the 15-man unit is complete, I'll step in for advanced instruction. Yes, sir. They traded hopeful looks. They all knew how formidable Xiang Nan was. Receiving his personal tutelage could vault their power in a short span. Tase, Xiang Nan continued, I've watched all 3 of your match videos. The flaws in battlefield thinking and target engagement I pointed out last time are still there. That's why you keep losing. Sorry, sir. A soldier's mouth should never say those 3 words. If you die on the battlefield you won't have time to be sorry. His gaze was calm but sharp. You must understand this, Pidocchia's geography has kept it relatively peaceful, but that won't last forever. The Kakin Empire has already established diplomatic ties with us. You've surely heard the rumors back in your districts. Kakin commands an army. Note the word army. For Pidocchia that alliance may look beneficial, but from the V5's standpoint it is troubling. It means we could be pulled into war at any moment. If that happens, the outcome will hinge on clashes between non-users. If you aren't strong enough, you won't even qualify to stand in front of a state-level non-operative. He raised one finger for emphasis. Sir. What do you mean by state-level non-operative? Do you mean a floor master? Floor master? Xiang Nan snorted. Except for a few truly tricky cases, most floor masters are nothing special. Put it this way, a V5 nation can pour massive resources into a single warrior and create a monster. Use me as a measuring stick, I'm already Pidocchia's pet project. Favored, privileged, military backing. Yet Pidocchia's national power is nowhere near that of even the weakest V5 member. Even at my level I wouldn't dare claim to be state class. Silence fell. To those in the room, the man on the sofa was already far beyond their reach, and even he spoke so soberly. Xiang Nan was not exaggerating. The V5 possessed advanced weapons technology, biogenetics, chemical and medical sciences. Much of its secret. They had long studied the calamities mankind once held back from the Dark Continent. No one could say what breakthroughs they had made, or whether those discoveries were already in military use. If the V5 could fit a micro-rose bomb into Nitero's chest, they could do the same to others. Mass-producing 1,000 or 10,000 walking bombs. Such battlefield weapons defied imagination. The poor man's rose wasn't even the scariest bomb in the human world, many tin-pot dictators owned them and adored them. From that, Xiang Nan gauged the V5's true might. Keep growing here in Heaven's Arena, he finished. You still have a long road. Don't rush. With that he rose, beckoned to Menmen at his side, and left the room. They had their own task ahead, the Extinction Games. Round 6 had begun. It would be the first time the 2 of them entered another world to play a placement match in the reincarnation dimension. Whether they would return alive was anyone's guess. Chapter 115, King of Fighters. This time, The extinction game mission began without any visible form. No announcement, no leaked details. According to Orban and Pigeon, players were sent straight to another world before any quest briefing. In other words, no one could know the required party size or who their teammates would be. Nor could they tell which world they would end up in. Xiangnan and Manman might not even land in the same world. The placement match is the easiest round, Xiangnan had reminded her, repeating Orban's warning. The greatest danger still comes from players from other worlds. If your own safety isn't under threat, do everything you can to rack up points. That is, dimensional coins. In the city that housed Heaven's Arena, Xiangnan and Manman were sitting in a dessert shop. Before jumping to another world, he treated the girl to her favorite sweets. After all, even a first-round placement match puts heavy pressure on players. This would be their first journey across the myriad worlds. They had no idea what awaited them. The biggest variable was the world itself. If they couldn't return, this might be his and Manman's last time together. Don't worry, Manman said with a smile. She actually felt little pressure. Her second personality would protect her. An app, and everything would be fine. Just like before. System, ding. Players, prepare for transfer. Countdown begins. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hearing the voice in his mind, Xiangnan lit a cigarette. He had barely taken one drag when a waiteress hurried over to stop him. But just as she got the word "Sir, please" out, the man and woman before her dissolved into white light and vanished. The waiteress jumped in fright. 1 second Xiangnan was in the dessert shop, smelling cake. The next, white smoke puffed from his nostrils as the screech of metal and a blast of scorching heat hit him. He raised his eyes and found himself at the mouth of an alley, surrounded by several unfamiliar faces. The few of them exchanged glances and instantly understood. Clearly, they were the players matched together this round. Manman wasn't here. Xiangnan frowned. Many high-level players had already been wiped out by Orban and Pigeon, yet even with numbers so low he still hadn't been teamed with Manman. Just his luck. System, attention. Attention. Players have arrived in an enemy world and have been detected by enemy players. They are on their way. System, because Hunter x Hunter is not the same dimension, your native concealment state is nullified. System, within 48 hours, inflict as much destruction on the enemy world as possible. System, current world, unknown. Player count? World's highest level player, unknown. Total combat power, unknown. World ranking? The moment they arrived, the system blared a flurry of alarms. Xiangnan skimmed the readout. Almost every data field was a question mark. Which meant they would have to explore the world blind. What does inflict destruction on this world even mean? Someone muttered, bewildered. Why only 4 of us? Isn't 5 the minimum for this stage? With just 4, our combat power is weakened, and without the concealment buff, the world's story characters can attack us too? That's dangerous. Another man sucked in a breath. Our world had some cleaning recently. High-level players purging colleagues above Extinction 5. The lower head count this time is probably related. The third person spoke up. The 3 began discussing. Anyone have intel on this? One asked. While they spoke, Xiangnan had already scrambled up the wall between 2 buildings, using his ability to reach the roof first. He stood on a rooftop terrace. Seeing him move, the other 3 followed like startled hares. High above, wind whipped Xiangnan's long coat. He took a drag on his cigarette and looked out over the cityscape, prosperous. Familiar steel and concrete towers, wide streets, rivers of traffic. This is an alternate Earth. Identical to our previous life, he said calmly as the 3 approached. Completely different from Hunter x Hunter's urban style, for a transmigrator, the conclusion was instant. Because this was Earth. America, he added after scanning a few more signs and billboards. And the storefronts and clothing of passers-by confirmed it. Definitely America. I traveled there in my past life. Feels familiar, one teammate agreed. Huge city, though. Can't tell which one from our old world. There are many fictional worlds modeled on Earth, Xiangnan said evenly. First we identify which universe this is, then gauge local conditions and player activity. Grab a random local, ask a few questions. Done. Right now our top priority is the hostile players, they're our biggest threat. As for destroying the world, it's literal. The larger the impact we make, the greater the reward. Eliminating story characters or derailing the plot yields more points. Points? Another teammate asked, surprised. So you do know about the reincarnation dimension, said the dreadlocked man, reaching out a hand. I'm Beshi. 17, Xiangnan replied, shaking it. This is our first drip. Placement match. So the system shouldn't be too cruel. Once we arrive, it assigns a local squad to hunt us. They're the danger, No special objectives otherwise. Still, causing chaos will draw story characters, and the commotion won't be small, Bishi explained to the other two. Time matters. Talk in team chat, Xiongnan said, flicking away his cigarette. First figure out which world this is. He leaped from the roof, leading the way. The other two realized 17 and Bishi clearly had inside info, so they hurried after. Minutes later, Xiongnan reached a city playground. Skateboarders, groups playing basketball, a mother pushing a stroller. He picked a young man lounging on a bench and sat down beside him. Hi, I'm a tourist from another country. Mind if I ask a few questions? Xiongnan smiled. Sure. They chatted. China? You came all the way from China? Also here to watch the King of Fighters tournament? The King of Fighters? Xiongnan echoed the familiar acronym, thinking. This is South Town. You don't know? The youth looked puzzled, then pointed at a giant electronic billboard nearby. Hey, look. Xiongnan followed his finger to a screen showing a flashy ad, a white envelope invitation stamped with the letter R, flipping amid flames, the words King of Fighters blazing across it. I see. This world is the King of Fighters. As Xiongnan digested the intel, a message popped up on his system panel from Bishi, King of Fighters? Chapter 116, Hunt Begin. Xiongnan could hardly be unfamiliar with the King of Fighters. He had even played it before. But in his memory, wasn't it just an arcade game? After receiving the intel, Xiongnan immediately regrouped with the other three. Of the team, Bishi was clearly the one who understood the King of Fighters universe best. Besides what Xiongnan had heard in advance from Orban and Pigeon, the only other clues about this placement match came from a few players who had once returned to the Kanganashihara world. They told him they, too, had arrived in Hunter x Hunter by first clearing a placement match. A couple of their members were first-timers in other worlds, though the captain seemed to have gone through placement several times. In short, for this first placement match, as long as Xiongnan's squad could eliminate the system assigned the King of Fighters players, nothing else should pose a problem. Much like when the Kangan players had tried to kill him and Manman back then. The King of Fighters is a multiverse, Bishi began once the format under the electronic billboard that Xiongnan had just glanced at. It contains elements from Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting, Psycho Soldier, and more. Think of the King of Fighters as the main storyline, the other series are side stories set in the same continuity and share characters. Judging by the blank looks on the other three faces, Bishi realized they had never heard of those titles either. Fine. Just remember we're in the King of Fighters world. From what I just dug up, today is the opening of the King of Fighters 94 arc. The key characters involved right now are Geese Howard and Rugal. Although the King of Fighters as a game starts here, the in-universe tournaments had already been held many times in Fatal Fury and the like. Always organized by Geese. One teammate brightened. I've played the game, but never read the comics. Power level-wise, this world can't compare with Hunter x Hunter, right? Sure there are a few psychics, but most fighters just use martial arts styles. Apart from people like Kyokyu Sanagi or Ori Yagami, everyone else feels pretty weak. As intruders, what they feared most was a landing in a universe whose power system outclassed Hunter x Hunter. That would mean the enemy players would be terrifyingly strong. Now, he breathed a sigh of relief. Bishi shot him a glance and shook his head. You're both right and wrong. In terms of raw feats the King of Fighters cast can't match Hunter x Hunter. None abilities are richer and more varied, and Hunter's overall level is higher. Because this world is still tied to Earth as an audience, its power scale is calibrated to an Earth baseline. Most characters are basically world champion tier humans. Hunter x Hunter is a genuine otherworld, even ordinary limits of flesh are much higher there. However, the King of Fighters cosmology is frightening. There's the will of Earth itself. Orochi. And organizations like Southtown's Howard Group, arms dealer Rugal, Nests, those from the distant land, the Orochi clan, and so on. Setting aside the three sacred treasures, many elites wield elemental or even conceptual powers. Time, space, the five elements. While the system isn't as intricate as Nin, the sources of their power are on a scary tier. Xiongnan summed up, so the average combat level is lower than Nin users, but a subset of true top tiers here far exceeds Hunter x Hunter standards, correct? Exactly. Some of those powers embody rules or concepts. It's broken. Bishi nodded. Many power sources in the King of Fighters can destroy or reshape the world. The other two players fell silent. Their earlier relief evaporated. Still, the King of Fighters 94 is just the start of the main story, meaning the timeline has barely begun. Much like Hunter, this world might have only just opened up. Player strength overall shouldn't be absurd yet. Good news for us. Aside from a handful of monsters, The typical fighters are still within what I'd call normal bounds. After all, it derives from Earth. Plenty of abilities are written from an Earth perspective rather than a full high fantasy realm. He added a final reassurance, as long as we don't provoke the really tricky ones, we should be reasonably safe. Xiangnan remained calm. All that is your hypothesis. We'll learn the real power scale once we meet other players. Let's first find a place to study the King of Fighters 94 plot. Hostile players won't get here instantly. I expect once they arrive we'll be confined to some arena. Don't act rashly. Take them out first, then move. The others agreed. Beshi indeed needed to brief them properly. One more thing, Xiangnan added. If the main plot has already begun, it's likely intruding players aren't just from Hunter. Other worlds players may also be here. Stay alert. Even Beshi hadn't considered that. The three of them stiffened. They soon checked into a hotel in nearby South Town. Money, naturally, was stolen. Setting foot on Earth again left them with mixed feelings. The place looked almost identical to their former world. Inside the room, Beshi explained the King of Fighters lore and every detail of the 94 storyline. Rugal Bernstein is the hidden boss, Xiangnan muttered after a while. He'd heard the name but only now learned the facts, a global magnate and arms trafficker ruling the black market of weapons and contraband. Rather like the Ten Dons. He's also a terrifying martial artist who turns defeated foes into statues, cruel and arrogant, possessing Orochi power. The public-facing boss is Geese Howard, ruler of South Town, presently allied with Rugal. He studied under Tong Furu, hails from China's ancient martial traditions, and also practices Aikido. Xiangnan observed, so the various fighting styles here can unleash energy waves and shockwave moves. Combat isn't pure brawling. System, attention, hostile players have entered the designated zone. Player teams, prepare for combat. System, 48-hour countdown begins. Now, so fast? All four received the alert at once. South Town was large, but the system had clearly carved out a battlefield. One teammate panicked. Makes sense, Xiangnan said, rising first. If South Town starts the main plot and the King of Fighters tournament is imminent, the place must already be swarming with players. Close to us. The zone is limited and it's their turf, we can't do much yet, so let's scout first. At the door he glanced back. Our world is basically a new server that hasn't formally marched across the multiverse. Outside Hunter, we represent all hunters. Even if we die here, don't disgrace the name. Or you'll hurt every Hunter player, especially newcomers. The trio fell silent. Now, let the hunt begin. Xiangnan's eyes flashed coldly as he shut the door behind him. Chapter 117, I'm a Hunter. Xiangnan had only just reached the hotel lobby when... boom. A skyscraper in the distance suddenly exploded. Every window on one of the upper floors blew out, spewing blinding flames and black smoke. Panic instantly spread through the hotel. Because night had already fallen, the burning glare in the sky looked even more dazzling. So it's begun already? Xiangnan narrowed his eyes. The timing was too perfect, this didn't feel like an accident. Most likely, hostilities between player teams had just kicked off. Since the King of Fighters storyline was underway, the odds were high that his squad was not the only group of outsiders here. And players from other worlds would be clashing with the King of Fighters natives as well. He withdrew his gaze and strolled out the front doors. His calm bearing stood in stark contrast to the frantic crowd around him. Beshi, team channel, I'm heading to the roof. Even though the system had sealed and fenced off the combat zone, a high vantage point would let him see unfolding events first. Another teammate, there's a shopping mall inside the zone, close by. I'll infiltrate that place and blend in as a shopper. There'll be a crowd, even if the enemy searches, they won't ID me right away. Beshi, 17, stay here at the hotel with me. We'll keep eyes on the enemy and share anything we spot. This mission actually required nothing more than surviving 48 hours, they didn't have to fight at all. Just like Xiangnan and Manman's third trial, if the attackers failed to drive them out in time, the enemy lost. Compared with the more seasoned Xiangnan and Beshi, the other two clearly planned to lie low for a bit. A cautious approach. Understandable, and relatively safe. But Xiangnan had no intention of turtling. He had already gauged this placement match's difficulty. With his strength, he should be able to handle it. Stepping outside the Hunter world, every move we make advertises our home server, he told himself. If we struggle in our very first placement, what happens later? I'll end up like Orban and Pigeon. Helpless. Finishing a lap around the hotel, he faced the crowd staring at the blast site, silently pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and took a drag. Looks like Beshi was the only one who really heard what I said, he exhaled. At its core, the reincarnation arena was world against world. A player was no longer a lone individual but a flag bearer for an entire dimension. Every action, every tactic had to be weighed carefully. The name Hunter x Hunter has to ring through the multiverse, he thought. If we're shoved into the weakling tier right out of the gate, every Hunter player, veteran or newbie, will pay the price. A name flashed through his mind, Mai, the player who had once carried the Hunter world to the very front of the multiverse rankings. Even now, Hunter players still enjoyed the prestige Mai had earned. Bishi, rooftop, incoming. No attempt at stealth. 3 sedans on the road directly ahead, about 100 meters from the hotel. He had the system map open. Other than the hotel, only that shopping mall offered cover, everything else was wide open. We never expected the enemy to arrive this fast, Bishi continued. We're boxed in by the terrain. The hotel and the mall are the most obvious public sites, they'll search these first. 3 cars. So the system's thrown quite a few at us. 17, what now? Xiangnan made no reply. From where he stood he soon saw the 3 black sedans race up and halt in the hotel's forecourt. Doors opened, players in mismatched outfits climbed out. A quick count. More than a dozen. Boom. The earlier skyscraper erupted again. Another floor's windows blew out. But this time white frost billowed outward, rapidly coating the facade with ice, dazzling under the city lights. Ice element? Xiangnan squinted. Which universe's power is that? Which group's players? The newcomers also glanced at the frozen tower, but their focus soon returned to the hotel entrance, where one man in a black trench coat calmly smoked, utterly unfazed. Enemy player. The King of Fighters squad's expressions changed. They hadn't expected the target to greet them openly instead of hiding. Seems someone can't wait to get started, Xiangnan murmured, flicking away his cigarette. He removed his glasses with a graceful motion and slipped them into an inner pocket. Shall we begin? He flashed a row of white teeth, and was answered by a roar of gunfire. Dozens of muzzles sprayed bullets at him. Glass shattered, bullets ripped the lobby to pieces. Xiangnan whipped up his coat. The fabric instantly hardened like a shield, blocking the hail of lead. Spent casings piled at his feet. On the roof, Bishi stared, dumbfounded. 17 had launched into a frontal brawl with zero subterfuge. Nearly a minute of sustained fire ended. The King of Fighters players gaped in horror, even canonical fighters took damage from bullets, yet this man had shrugged everything off with just a coat. Xiangnan softened the coat again, letting it hang loose. Nen technique, Shu, channeling aura into an object to strengthen it. The trench coat itself was already a military-grade model from the Republic of Patakia. Lowering his shoulders, he eyed the frozen enemy line. The King of Fighters boasts countless fighting styles, he called out coldly. What, spent your ammo and ran out of moves? The man with slick back hair at their front tossed aside his machine gun, drew a pistol, and swallowed hard. Who? Which world are you from? As the King of Fighters natives they had hoped for weak opponents, a low-tier universe would have been perfect? Clearly, fate disagreed. Surviving a point-blank barrage unscathed meant they'd run into a monster. Listen up. Your pre-death introduction, Xiangnan said softly. I am a new user. You may call me a hunter. The moment the words left his lips, he vanished. Before the King of Fighters players could squeeze their triggers again, he was inside their formation. Both hands came up, each gripping a scalpel. He began to dance. Silver blades and swirling coattails tore through the crowd like a storm. PFFT PFFT PFFT. In barely 2 seconds it was over. Frozen in their last poses, the players stood motionless. Until thin crimson lines appeared on every throat. Blood fountained, bodies crashed down. More than a dozen the King of Fighters players. Dead to the last. Bathed in their spray, Xiangnan's icy gaze swept the corpses. Boot soles sticking to blood and dust, he knelt beside Slickback, plucked a tiny earpiece from the man's ear, and held it to his lips. Smiling pleasantly, he spoke to whoever was on the other end. Dear friend. Aren't you going to come welcome me? Crack. Something slammed on the far side, the signal went dead. At that same moment, several hundred meters away in a van, another player ripped off his earpiece as though it burned him and crushed it underfoot, face white and heart pounding. What happened? His companion asked, frowning. It's hunters. Hunters? Our assigned intruders are hunters. Meaning? Hunter x Hunter. He screamed, voice shaking with dread. Chapter 118, No Plan Just Rush. Hunter x Hunter players. What's so scary about that? Does it really shake you up? It's not like they come from some universe-busting Tier 0 world. There were 3 people in the van, the King of Fighters squad's captain and his 2 vice-captains. Because their faction had many players, they also had 3 decision-makers. All 3 already possessed some mission intel. They had secretly colluded to fool the rest of their team, sending those pawns ahead to probe the enemy while the trio hid at a safe distance to judge the intruders' strength. If the foes proved strong, they would quietly launch their real plan. If the foes were weak, they would pop out, bark orders, and steal the credit. Exactly. In the grand scheme of the multiverse, the king of fighters should be considered strong. We even touch on cosmic concepts. Some power sources can cross past and future. From what I know, plenty of popular anime worlds look flashy but rank far below ours in raw power. That was the other vice captain talking. You don't get it. The shaken vice captain's face twisted as he stared at the other two. A vast setting and a powerful top tier only mean a high ceiling, they don't guarantee the floor is high. We're just players. Our world lore doesn't automatically make us strong. Different worlds give different resources and growth paths. He lifted his head, helpless. In Hunter x Hunter the average NAN user isn't absurdly broken, but their combat capability is terrifying. The NAN system is one of the most meticulously designed power frameworks in all anime. Lots of series actually borrow ideas from Hunter. Rich fighting styles, bizarre NAN abilities, combat instincts honed in brutal environments. Most hunters may never reach our universe's ridiculous top end, but their starting line, their lower bound, leaves us in the dust. Even a so-called ordinary human there has potential and talent way beyond ours. Our world is still shackled to real-world Earth logic, theirs deliberately exaggerates human limits. Compared to them, our whole combat tier is far too low. The more he spoke, the more frightened he looked, eyes widening. I should have realized. The system always balances matchups. If we have this many players, the enemy's individual strength won't be weak. They may have only a handful of people. Reeves and the others fired first. We opened hostilities. But the other side had just one man. 2 seconds. Only 2 seconds. And everyone was dead. His breath came in gasps, cold sweat trickled down. The captain and the vice captain traded a glance. They'd never even heard of Hunter x Hunter, but their companion's reaction told them the situation was dire. So, bottom line, those hunters' lower limit is way above ours, right? Exactly. He shivered as he answered. Damn it. Looks like we drew a rotten hand. The captain cursed. Southtown was already a war zone. The system had diced the city into small battlefields. The King of Fighters natives were clashing everywhere with intruders from other worlds, some still played cat and mouse, conflicts yet to ignite. The distant blast, now coated in spreading ice, told them monsters lurked in that sector. And now they had one right here as well. No choice. Activate Plan B, the captain snarled, biting down hard. Escape was impossible. Once spawned, they couldn't leave the arena. But as natives they held an innate advantage. The power they could command wasn't limited to players alone. He pulled out his phone. Elsewhere, Xiongnan stepped out of the hotel and onto the street. He doubted the enemy leaders had died so easily. Anyone that got this far through the Annihilation games was no novice. Many players were fools, yes, but there were always clever ones. The squad he'd just butchered was clearly bait. Sacrificial scouts. Beshi caught up from behind. What's the plan? He asked without hesitation. Compared with the other two, this teammate called 17 felt far more reliable. Even if 17's plan against the King of Fighters squad had looked like no plan at all. Some rats are still hiding. We'll flush them out and finish quickly. Not going to mask our trail? I'm in a hurry. A hurry? Beshi didn't understand. Xiangnan's gaze drifted toward another tower where battle was raging. If the enemy still had an earpiece link, they couldn't be far. Probably in a roadside shop or alley. But Xiongnan favored a getaway vehicle, with wheels. They could bolt the moment things went bad. Standing at the intersection he scanned around. And spotted a suspicious black van accelerating away. Why suspicious? The explosion ahead had made most drivers stop cold, clogging the street, yet this van had been parked at an odd angle, clearly anticipating the jam. It had already jumped the sidewalk, barreling off and even hitting pedestrians. Found you. Xiangnan's eyes narrowed, killing intent flared. With a whoosh he burst forward at full speed, a streak of motion racing after the van. At the same moment, another side street spewed dozens of men in GI, weapons in hand, storming toward Beshi's position. Enemy-controlled minions. Beshi realized. But 17 had vanished. Seriously. Beshi chuckled wryly. A big chunk of their foes down, and now this mob. Clearly the enemy was desperate. As intruders, they were supposed to play the frightened mice. Yet 17's explosive brutality had flipped the script, now they were the cats. Aura flared around Beshi. He still didn't know 17's grand plan, but the man's actions had opened Beshi's eyes. Sometimes caution was overrated. They were the hunters. Smiling, he said to himself, Since our main striker's gone after the priority targets, I'll clean up these grunts." With that he shot forward at a speed ordinary eyes couldn't track, diving into the mob. And a fresh blood-soaked slaughter erupted in the middle of the street. Chapter 119, waiting for the canon characters to make a move? He is here. In the van's driver's seat, the player stared at the rearview mirror, scared half to death. When he had first gone the engine, that man in the black coat had been nearly 200 meters behind him. Yet in less than 2 minutes, despite his foot having smashed the accelerator to the floor, he still couldn't shake the pursuer. The man was literally outrunning a moving vehicle. Truth be told, the driver's naked eyes couldn't even track the figure, but he knew the enemy was closing in and had spotted him. Damn it! He cursed. The van was flying, yes, but they were in the middle of a city, not an open plain. Traffic and a system-defined combat zone both limited his speed and room to maneuver. Screw you, you son of a... He slammed the steering wheel in frustration, wishing the van would suddenly morph into a supercar. Only now did he fully grasp just how terrifying these so-called hunters were. The martial arts students they'd sent out had been utterly useless. At the enemy's speed, normal people couldn't even see him. The three leaders had believed their own lies, convinced that those dojo disciples could stall the intruder and buy them time. So they'd agreed to split up and distract the foe. Only he had been assigned to drive the getaway car, making him the clearest target. Bang! Something heavy landed on the roof. Face draining of color, he jerked the wheel hard, trying to drift around a corner and fling the pursuer off. It failed. A scalpel punched clean through the metal roof and stabbed down. Unable to dodge, the blade buried itself in his shoulder, ruining his control. The drifting van flipped, skidded, and slammed into the facade of a shop. Boom! Windows shattered. The body crumpled, flames and black smoke erupted. Xiongnan had leapt clear a moment earlier and now watched the wreck. Crunch! The damaged door kicked open. The scrawny, sharp-featured driver crawled out, drenched in blood. Beyond the scalpel wound, the crash had battered him badly. Bro! Wait! Seeing Xiongnan only a step away, he yelled in panic. "I'm abandoning the mission. Whatever punishment the system hands out, I'll take it. I surrender." Another scalpel appeared in Xiongnan's hand as he strolled closer. The remaining players. "It's not just you, is it?" He was after intel, ignoring the man's pleas. "Two more besides me. They got out earlier and slipped into the crowd." The player instinctively backed away, eyes begging for mercy. Describe their looks and clothes. Names were useless. Every squad randomized and disguised those. But appearance was harder to change on short notice. The man rattled off a full description. "And your battle plan?" Xiongnan herded him until his back hit the shop wall. "Nowhere left to retreat. Since we didn't know how strong you were, the three of us stayed hidden and pushed the other players to test you first. If things looked bad, we'd stall for time and wait for story characters to act." "Story characters?" A spark flashed in Xiongnan's eyes. "Right. Southtown's about to host the King of Fighters, so plenty of canonical fighters are already here. A disaster this big will draw their attention. Once they show up, intruders like you will be targeted. The mission only says expel or kill you. It doesn't say we have to do it ourselves. So that's their real scheme." The driver was just another pawn. While Xiongnan mulled this over, the man suddenly struck. Though his arms were injured, his legs were fine. Whoosh! His right leg shot up, axe-like, toward Xiongnan's head. Xiongnan hopped back, giving a low whistle of admiration. Clearly the surrender had been an act. Leg after leg lashed out, the kicks hacking and thrusting like alternating battle axes and spears. A genuine fighting art. But, skill-wise, I'd rank it somewhere above the 50th floor of Heaven's Arena, Xiongnan thought, easily evading as he studied the technique. High-tier world, slow-growth players. Every universe cuts both ways, he mused. Drop into a high-power setting and you may never tap your potential. A lower-power world like Kanganashore lets you rise fast but leaves you vulnerable to invasion. In the end, the only path upward is through the reincarnation dimension. Seconds later, the already wounded man faltered, kicks losing force. His barrage ended, Xiongnan stopped, raised both hands, and flicked the scalpel back and forth so fast it blurred. The player's face went sheet white. "Nice kicking style. Martial arts? Looks a bit like Taekwondo." Xiongnan smiled. "Your turn's over. Now it's mine." And in the next instant, he lunged to kill. Chapter 120, Time to Destroy Things. Xiongnan found a mobile phone on the man's body. From the recent contacts list he dialed the number that appeared most frequently. No one answered. As expected. They've abandoned him. That was no surprise. He pocketed both the phone and the wallet, then turned to leave. Behind him, The King of Fighters player lay on the ground with a scalpel buried in his forehead. Not far away the van still burned fiercely, and the shop owner and staff inside stared at him in terror. Because these were native The King of Fighters players, they knew Southtown's layout well. Even though the combat zone defined by the system was less than 2 kilometers across, it was a dense downtown district. Buildings packed close, crowds thick. So, even with descriptions of the last 2 enemies, tracking them down within 48 hours would not be easy. The King of Fighters players have to expel or kill us, but we only have to last 48 hours. They should be the anxious ones. He headed back the way he came to rejoin Beshi, all the while watching the blasted skyscraper that stood right on the edge of their battlefield. Obviously adjoining another zone. How many different worlds players have invaded Southtown for this dimensional placement match? From the driver's confession he now knew there were over 800 players in the King of Fighters world right now, about 200 at Extinction 5 or higher. Far more, proportionally, than in Hunter x Hunter. That was natural. Environment and resources shape players' strength. But cross-world power levels aren't directly comparable. The launch of the King of Fighters plot was effectively an open beta. The formal server opening. Xiangnan's team, and the others here, were probably the first wave of interdimensional intruders. Judging by the number of enemy squads they'd met, the system had matched at least 6 or 7 teams against the King of Fighters natives. Hence 6 or 7 battlefields in Southtown, each with its own outsiders. Suddenly a deafening roar ripped through the city. Some huge creature was bellowing. Far enough away that the sound reached him weakened, yet still oppressive. Xiangnan snapped his head toward it, eyes narrowing. In the distance, between the high rises, he saw a tiny black speck scuttling and leaping like a gecko. With an in-technique Geo he focused aura into his eyes, magnifying the view. The speck revealed the outline of a human torso. But colossal. A giant, and it was fleeing. Boom. 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 Explosions blossomed wherever it landed. Someone was shelling it. 17. Beshi, covered in blood, raced up. Police sirens were now wailing. Cruisers appeared on the streets. Not a place to chat. Move. The 2 vanished. 30 minutes later all 4 Hunter players gathered on the roof of a sealed-off building. Southtown's authorities were deploying in force. From this height they could see streets clogged with patrol cars and armed officers. Their own battlefield was now cordoned off. Distant quarters of the city still flashed with artillery fire. Southtown had become a giant war zone. Xiangnan shared the intel he collected. The King of Fighters tech is quite advanced. Clones, energy weapons. Even we can die under military fire, Beshi said grimly. They confirmed at least 3 hotspots. 1. Their original zone. 2. The frozen skyscraper area. 3. The sector where the giant was under bombardment. 2 other battlefields likely held intruders as well. Our dangers are threefold, Xiangnan summed up. First, native The King of Fighters players. Second, story characters. Third, official military hardware. Civilian crowds had been cleared, the building they were on had already been searched, then sealed, so for the moment they were safe. Still, finding the last 2 enemy players would be hard. The zone was big and full of hiding spots. Doesn't matter, Xiangnan said. They have the deadline problem, we just survive 48 hours. Beshi added more intel. In the King of Fighters, martial arts schools are everywhere. Like their own Heaven's Arena. Many players start by apprenticing to a dojo. Entry is easy. The ice-wielding intruders' origin world was unclear. Giants, though, were rarer. The 2 quieter teammates offered guesses. One Piece, Attack on Titan, 7 Deadly Sins, Valkyrie Drive. But Xiangnan cut them off. Too many possibilities, especially if Giant was merely a technique. Those last 2 enemies are no real threat, he said. Their tactic is to involve story characters and the army on us. Surviving alone isn't enough, we also need to damage this world and harvest resources, or we won't earn dimension coins. So waiting it out is pointless. Coin farming is optional, he told them. If you just want to pass the placement, hide till the timer ends. If you want coins, those police down there are walking points. But be warned, once we show ourselves we'll draw not only gunfire but possibly cannon characters. With that, Xiangnan vaulted off the roof toward another building. Beshi followed instantly. One teammate hesitated, then chased after them, the last stayed put, choosing caution. Gliding over rooftops like 2 night-born phantoms, Xiangnan and Beshi reconnoitered the police deployment. As intruders our role is to disrupt, Xiangnan said. But the King of Fighters players have surrendered the job, so we can make a scene. I'm sure others think the same. From the neighboring battlefield a chilly mist drifted. Evidence of ice powers at work. Not just killing. We need to wreck the city itself. The greater the impact, the better. This isn't our world. The king of fighters is our enemy. The more chaos here, the harder its players will grow. Someday they might invade Hunter. Better to hobble them now. He turned icy eyes on the streets below. You handle the ground troops. I'll collect their munitions. We'll need them to demolish these buildings later. Understood. The two figures split and melted into the dark.